Young man, you look like you've just seen a ghost. Eric, a young gas attendant, is just going about his usual routine when an elderly woman pulls up to his pump. As he fills her tank, he sees a tattoo on her wrist, leading to a reunion that will change the course of his life. Eric was a 26-year-old artist who also worked as a gas attendant to earn some extra money. Pumping gas wasn't exactly his dream job, but after 3 years, Eric had grown to appreciate the faces and stories that passed through his station each day. It allowed him to meet people from different walks of life. And for someone who was very shy as a child, talking to people every day helped him get rid of his shyness and build his self-confidence. One morning, as usual, Eric clocked in for work and took his usual spot at pump number 1. Though he occasionally floated to other pumps to help out, this one felt like home. That morning, after Eric had attended to several customers, he was sitting by the pump, talking to his fellow gas attendant, when an old black car drove up to his stand and parked in front of him. The driver was a well-dressed elderly woman with silver hair, her warm smile inviting Eric over. "Good morning, ma'am," Eric greeted the woman. "How much gas would you like?" he asked, and the woman responded. After entering the amount she requested, Eric began filling her car. When he was done, he walked over and asked if she wanted to pay with cash or card. But before Eric could complete his sentence, the woman had already stretched her arm out to hand over the money. It was then that Eric noticed a tattoo on her right wrist. His jaw dropped. It was a tattoo of a half-heart and a crucifix. One he knew was not a popular design seen on random people. "Is there anything wrong, son?" the woman asked, noticing Eric's facial expression. Nothing. I'm fine," Eric stammered, his voice catching in his throat. The woman tilted her head, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Are you sure? Young man, you look a little pale." Eric swallowed, his eyes darting back to the tattoo on her wrist. "It's just that. That tattoo, it reminds me of someone." He paused, gathering his courage. "A woman named Claudia. She had the same one." The woman's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Claudia? Well, isn't that a coincidence? My name is Claudia too. Claudia Smith." A sudden realization dawned on Eric, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Wait a minute. Claudia. As in the Claudia who used to look after me and my sister." Claudia's face softened, a warm smile spreading across her features. "Eric? Eric Kent? Is that really you?" "Yes," Eric exclaimed, a grin erupting on his face. Overwhelmed with emotion, Claudia stepped out of her car and embraced him tightly. "Look how much you've grown. I never thought I would see you or your family again," Claudia said. "How are your parents? Is your mom still mad I used to secretly feed you sweets and chocolates?" Claudia laughed. "I think she's calmed down about that." Eric blushed. "And what about your sister, Maggie? How is she doing?" "She must be all grown up by now," Claudia said. Eric's face fell, and he took a deep breath. "We lost Maggie shortly after we moved out of our hometown. She was involved in a car accident that took her life on the spot," Eric answered in a sad tone. "Oh dear, I'm so sorry about that," Claudia said softly. "It's fine, Claudia. It's been years. You don't have to apologize," Eric reassured her. As they were catching up, they didn't realize that 2 cars had parked behind Claudia's. The drivers, tired of waiting, honked to get their attention. "You know what?" Claudia said hurriedly. "Come and see me this evening when you're done with work. We have a lot of catching up to do." She quickly scribbled her phone number and address on a piece of paper and handed it to Eric before driving off. Though Eric hated that Claudia had to go, he knew he was at work and couldn't mix his personal life with his job. But all day, even though Eric's body was at the gas station, his mind was with Claudia. He couldn't stop thinking of the woman who had been like a second mother to him when he was a child. Since Eric's parents were always busy and traveled often, he and his younger sister had been left in Claudia's care. The three of them had formed a strong mother-child relationship. Unfortunately, when Eric was 10, his father got a new job that required them to move to another town. That was how Eric and Claudia stopped seeing each other. Later that evening, as soon as Eric finished work, he went home, freshened up, and ate some food. After resting a bit, he called Claudia and informed her that he was on his way to her house. Luckily for Eric, Claudia was at home and said she was waiting for him. Around 6:30 p.m., Eric arrived at Claudia's house. It was a small yet fancy home that gave Eric a warm feeling as soon as he entered. "What can I offer you, dear?" Claudia asked after he'd settled down. I think a glass of water will do," Eric responded. "I'll be right back," Claudia said before disappearing into another section of the house. A minute after she left, she returned with a glass of water and some chocolates. "Do you still love chocolates? I remembered these were your favorite," Claudia said with a smile. "Yes, I still love them," Eric said as he eagerly unwrapped a bar of chocolate. After he took a bite, he smiled at Claudia and relaxed in the chair. "Now that you're here, let's talk about you, Eric. How have you been? Did you finally go to school to study art?" "You wouldn't stop talking about it back then." Claudia grinned as she collapsed softly into her sofa. "Oh no, my parents didn't like the idea of me becoming an artist, so they wouldn't sponsor me. I've been working hard to save up some money to study a more profitable course." "I love art, but I don't think it will work," Eric responded. "Oh, I see. You see, when I was young like you, I always wanted to travel and explore the world." Claudia smiled as she spoke. "Did you do that?" Eric asked. "That's my regret, Eric. I never did, and every day I think of all the places and amazing people I would have met. My parents were just like yours. They talked me out of following my dreams, and I listened to them," Claudia said. "But you could still do that. It's not too late," Eric tried to encourage Claudia. "No, Eric, I can't. But you can. Look at me. I'm almost 70, and I'm not as agile as I used to be. But you're young, son. Don't let your dream die just because someone else does not see what you see," Claudia said. "Do you still paint?" Claudia asked. "Yes, I do, but not as much as when I was younger. Sometimes I have to work 2 jobs to keep up with the bills," Eric responded. "You know, Eric," Claudia mused, a thoughtful expression on her face, "I have a feeling there's a reason we crossed paths today. I could have easily gone to a different gas station." She paused. "Maybe it was fate, or maybe something bigger than us brought us together after all these years." Eric, taken aback by her words, nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right," he murmured. "Maybe this wasn't just chance." Claudia continued, "Life has been a roller coaster, Eric. I've had my share of joy and happiness, but there have been plenty of lows too." She sighed. "Truthfully, I'm not where I always imagined I'd be. I've had success, but material things come and go. I've learned that life is so much more than that. You can have all the money in the world, but if pieces of the puzzle are missing, you'll never truly be happy." A tear rolled down her cheek. "And some pieces, once lost, can never be replaced." While Claudia spoke, Eric did not say a word. He listened attentively to her as she shared her story. I will help you, Eric. I loved you as a son and wouldn't want you to end up like me. I had some money saved up, and right now, you need it more than I do, Claudia said. You will help me? Eric asked in shock. But Eric stuttered. It doesn't matter, Eric. The universe orchestrated everything, and that is why you're drinking coffee in my house this evening, Claudia said with a smile. Eric could not believe that his life was about to change just because he saw a woman he had known from his childhood. Just as Claudia had promised, she gave Eric a lot of money. With it, he could go after his passion in college. Aside from supporting Eric financially, Claudia played a motherly role in his life. She supported him all the way until he graduated from college. With Claudia's support, Eric graduated at the top of his class, and years later, he became a very successful artist. Years later, Claudia passed away, leaving a void in Eric's life that no amount of success could fill. She had been more than a benefactor. She was the mother he never had, the voice of encouragement when self-doubt crept in. Eric never stopped sharing her story, how this angel in human form had changed everything. And when his first child, a daughter, was born, he and his wife decided on a name that honored the woman who had shaped his life, as well as the sister he had lost, Claudia Margaret Kent.